Blackout hackers usually target companies based on finance, intellectual property, and any kind of political foothold that they can get within an organization.
Phishing emails, opening email attachments, clicking on links, entering in their credentials onto fake web pages. That is 90% the root cause in most incidents.
People go after the money. If you have money somewhere, then they are interested in having you transfer it, usually with you thinking it's a good idea to transfer it rather than them stealing it outright.
Cyber risk is something very dynamic.
Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen different types of attackers coming in.
Losses from cyber attacks just keep on breaking records.
The impact of some cyber losses can be so severe they actually represent a strategic risk to the operations and the business plan of a business.
We've certainly seen cyber losses that made the business insolvent, or where the business was nationalized because of the impact to the country. And we've seen plenty of cyber losses in the billions. So we can imagine that globally, this could be in the trillions.
GDPR, which is a new regulation in the EU, introduced a couple of years ago, focuses on pretty substantial fines for corporates related to data breaches.
Malware can impact every aspect of a business. It can impact how they conduct business itself, how they reach their clients, and how they speak to each other.
Most businesses can tolerate relatively small-scale, everyday occurrences of cyber incidents, but they're mainly focusing on strategic risk.
This is mega data breaches, this is wiping of complete systems, and this is the changing of data that's going to inform purchasing.
What will cyber risk look like in the future is a question we're all wondering.
Cyber risk could look very different in a few years' time than it does today.
We're going to see more attacks on infrastructure, we're going to see more exploitation of the supply chain, and developments like the Internet of Things is just going to make this even more challenging.
With the example of deepfake videos, it's about being able to trust what we're seeing. Data breach events.
The breakdown of encryption.
Third-party and fourth-party risk.
The threat to their organization via their third parties, via organizations that they actually do business with.
You then bring in artificial intelligence and machine-based learning. Again, people start to rely on that as being all things, all people, right? The silver bullet.
Attackers are going to get a hold of that technology and perfect it and use it to weaponize their own attacks.
So I think risk management in the future really has to be about getting back to basics in many ways.
Everything starts from a good analysis of the type of business that you do, and the threat landscape.
And just taking care of things that generally are easily exploitable.
Cybersecurity issues oftentimes come when you have some sort of control gap or small detail that somebody's missed that an attacker can exploit.
Security is a game of the weakest link.
And so organizations that have very mature, repeatable programs tend to perform much better and reduce their cyber risk.
All businesses really need to understand their employees.
Fostering this culture of awareness, this togetherness, this last line of defense, this human firewall.
Have training.
Red Team uses the same ways or imitates the attackers, how they would get into the corporation, but the real difference is that attackers do not give you a detailed report about the security and improvement suggestions in your corporation, but the Red Team does.
Over the years, we've created a range of scenarios looking at cyber risks.
When we first published the business blackout scenario back in 2015, it was one of the first cyber scenarios ever published that went through the process of developing a narrative and estimating losses.
That was really big because it got people thinking about, hey, this is, this can impact the society, this can impact critical national infrastructure.
It really put a number, a scary number, on what could actually happen. And it really helps people wake up and understand that this could be a massive issue, not only from a human impact standpoint, but certainly from losses from a cyber insurance perspective.
They not only need to look at an individual scenario, but they need to look at multiple cyber scenarios all at once so that they can understand which strategies to prioritize and fund with their capital investments.
We've done scenarios around data breach, for example, trying to understand the drivers of loss.
Cloud outage.
Contagious malware.
Industrial control system compromise.
The work that the Center for Risk Studies does has been absolutely innovative.
Bringing the notion of risk out into the open.
How it's put cyber at the front of the risk conversation.
It's trustworthy, it's independent, there's no vested interest.
Understanding the way in which things are linked together.
Help bridge that gap between something that might be very hard to understand and esoteric like cybersecurity with business outcomes.
All the work that the team has been doing here in Cambridge on scenarios is really been talked about all over the world.
On a worldwide basis, the reports which the Centre has produced really stand above any other source of information on cyber risk.
You apply a certain amount of protection, risk mitigation, human sort of element training, but you have to measure what that residual risk is, apply cyber insurance to it, and then you have holistic cyber resilience.
The critical thing is that understanding the real detail of this, measuring the threat, understanding how the threat's evolving, building data is going to be fundamental to our future success in addressing the threat, and that's the great work that Cambridge is doing.
And those scenarios can help you understand, well, where might we have exposure, what could impact us more or less, and it can really sharpen your thinking and then help you put the right investment against the right mitigation action.
The work that the Center for Risk Studies has done, specifically around cyber, has helped to bring a really multidisciplinary community together to talk about solutions.